So you may be wondering, what is this EFT, emotional freedom techniques, or tapping technique? And what does it actually do, and how do we actually gain a benefit for something like stress? So EFT, or tapping, is actually a stress reduction technique. It is psychological, but it's physiological as well. And it does borrow on known, proven concepts that are out there in the therapy world. So we actually do focus in on what's happening for us, and we know through a bank of research that things like cortisol, the stress hormone, even things like brain changes can actually occur after the tapping technique. Now, what are we doing in tapping? We're actually stimulating known acupuncture points, and research now shows that that system in the body is indeed vascular. It's called the primovascular system, and we actually can see acupuncture points in that system when tracer dyes are used. And when we tap on a known acupuncture point while we're staying present to what's happening for us that we want to reduce normally, we actually are getting a profound change and a shift in things like stress, other strong emotions such as loneliness or anger, and even things like chronic health conditions such as chronic pain. So if this is something that may be useful to you, you might be interested in learning a little bit more about how to actually reduce stress in your body and your mind, and perhaps have a positive impact on other things in your life, have a look at the next video on exactly how to apply EFT tapping. So if you're learning how to tap, here are the tapping points. The first one tends to be the side of the hand, and it is when we say our setup statement and the words that we're going to focus on of what change we're attempting to get that session. Now, tapping with 2 fingers, your dominant hand on that fleshy part there, and it can be gentle. It doesn't need to be a hard tapping process, and it tends to be just as long as you're saying those words. So we're not necessarily counting how many times we're tapping. Now, in clinical EFT from the research trials, these are the points we then focus on. Start of the eyebrow, and it can be a gentle tap. We will be saying the reminder phrase during this. The second point is the side of the eye. The next one is under the eye. Again, not counting how many times. Under the nose. We would be focusing on the words that we're trying to say there. On the crease of the chin. The next one is an inch under the collarbone. And then under the arm, about 4 fingers from the armpit. And the last point in clinical EFT is the center of the head, and I like to use an open palm for that one. So that constitutes a round of tapping. Some people like to do 1 round, check how they feel. Others like to do 2 or 3 rounds, and that's completely up to you as well. So in the next video, we're going to show you how to use EFT tapping to reduce a strong feeling or emotion, something like stress, or even a strong feeling like anger. So now that you've learnt the tapping points, here's the rest of the recipe, and here's how we apply it. We would normally do tapping when there's a strong feeling that we want to actually reduce. So that could be something like a stress feeling, could be a stronger emotion such as anger or sadness. So we normally have that feeling, and might even be a physical sensation state. The next step would be to rate that out of 10. So 0 would actually represent you're completely calm, you feel okay, but 10 would actually represent the highest amount of that feeling. You can guess that number out of 10. It might just be a number that comes to mind, and that is perfectly okay to begin with. So after you've got that feeling, you've given it a rating out of 10, we then apply it in a setup statement, and that is where we use this side of the hand point, and we acknowledge how we feel. It is the tapping that will change that, and we do know that through research. And normally the formula is saying it like this: even though I have this feeling, I feel stressed, I accept I feel this way. So we might say that 2 or 3 times just to actually tune in and be mindful to that feeling. So even though I feel really stressed at the moment, I accept I feel that way. Then we do the clinical EFT points, and as I tap there, I say a short reminder phrase from that statement. It tends to be the feeling. I feel stressed. Side of the eye, I feel stressed. Under the eye, I feel stressed. Under the nose, I feel stressed. Crease of the chin, I feel stressed. An inch under the collarbone, I feel stressed. Under the arm, I feel stressed. And top of the head, I feel stressed. Now that is that one round of tapping. You can do 2 or 3 more rounds with the same words. You can change the word if something else comes to mind. And normally we'll pause at that point and say, what's that number from 0 to 10 now? When you think about what happened, you might be feeling into a sensation in your body. Guess a number out of 10. You can keep tapping until you get a difference, or until that number perhaps represents something like a 0 or a 1 at that low end, so that, again, you feel like there's been some change. One of the most times in life that EFT is its most effective is when you're actually in that emotional state right then, right now. So if you are, you can actually just start tapping on what's happening for you. And it is quite powerful to actually be in that state and do that tapping on whatever strong emotion is actually present for you. So you can tap through while you, again, stay focused. And that can be in the words that you say, or you may just be thinking about it while you're in that physical state of that emotion, rather than trying to think back to the last time perhaps you felt like that. So why does EFT tapping work for such a wide range of conditions? From everything for stress reduction right through to chronic pain. We've even had cancer studies done, a whole range of things such as phobia, range of movement in athletes, a whole range of things has actually been researched, and EFT has been found to be highly effective. And the question can come up, how can it possibly work for so many things? Now, essentially as a stress reduction technique, what we're doing most of the time is reducing stress in the body. We do know that blood flow to that frontal part of the brain when we're highly stressed means that often we can impact the body's systems and we can increase inflammation levels. We can actually have more pain and we can not think clearly. So after we do EFT tapping on whatever's happening for us that might be creating some sort of stress or even distress, what we find is people feel calmer, but the brain actually is able to work better, so that prefrontal cortex can engage again and people can think more clearly or perhaps make better decisions about things that are happening in their life. So as far as working for stress reduction to chronic pain to coping with cancer and traditional treatments right through to reducing phobias and even food cravings, the one thing that we're tapping on throughout all of those that's common is actually some sort of stress.